Serana never tells you what happened. You meet her in dim hollow crypt, sealed in a stone coffin for thousands of years. She is disoriented, confused, grateful for rescue. She becomes your companion, one of the most popular companions in Skyrim, beloved by millions of players. And over the course of your journey together, she hints. When you ask about her family, she deflects. When you mention her mother, she goes quiet. When the conversation turns to how she became a vampire, her voice changes. It's not something I really want to talk about. Most players accept this. They respect her privacy. They move on to the next quest, the next dragon, the next adventure. But I didn't move on. I dug. I researched. I found the texts that explain what Serana can't say. And what I discovered is one of the darkest secrets in Elder Scrolls lore. Tonight, I'm going to tell you what happened to Serana, what her mother allowed to happen, what the title Daughter of Coldharbour really means. This is not an easy story. Let me start with what the game tells you directly. Serana is a pure-blooded vampire. Not someone who was bitten and turned through disease, but someone who received vampirism directly from its source. This makes her immensely powerful, far more powerful than ordinary vampires. Her family, the Volkihar clan, are among the most ancient and dangerous vampires in Tamriel. They live in a frozen castle on an island in the Sea of Ghosts, isolated from the world, nursing grudges and schemes that span millennia. Serana's father is Harkon, the lord of the Volkihar. Her mother is Valerica, a powerful necromancer. Together, they formed one of the most dangerous vampire families in history. And at some point, Serana is vague about when, the entire family underwent a ritual to become pure-blooded vampires. A ritual dedicated to Molag Bal. To understand what happened to Serana, you need to understand who Molag Bal is. Molag Bal is a Daedric prince, one of the most powerful beings in the Elder Scrolls universe. His sphere is domination and enslavement. His realm is Coldharbour, a place of eternal cold, suffering, and violation. He is called the King of Rape. This is not a title the lore uses lightly. This is not metaphor. Molag Bal's entire existence is built around violation. The violation of boundaries, of consent, of free will, of the body itself. He created the first vampire through an act of unspeakable violation. The legends say he took a woman named Lemay Belfag and corrupted her, transformed her against her will into something no longer mortal. Every vampire in Tamriel descends from that original act. Every vampire carries the echo of what Molag Bal did. But some vampires are closer to the source than others. Pure-blooded vampires are created through direct contact with Molag Bal, not through being bitten, not through disease, through ritual. The ritual requires the participant to go to Coldharbour, Molag Bal's realm of oblivion. It requires them to submit to the Daedric prince directly. And it requires them to undergo something that the lore refuses to describe in detail. The result is called Daughter of Coldharbour for women, Son of Coldharbour for men. The title is a dark joke, a mockery of parenthood. Because what creates these vampires is not a birth, it is a violation. Serana is a daughter of Coldharbour. When you understand what that title means, her silences make sense. Her deflections make sense. The way she flinches when certain topics come up makes sense. She is not just a vampire. She is a survivor of something that the game cannot directly describe because it would change the rating. And she was not alone when it happened. Her mother was there. Her mother arranged it. Valerica, Serana's mother, is also a daughter of Coldharbour. She underwent the same ritual. She experienced the same violation. And then, this is the part that breaks me. She brought her daughter to experience it too. The ritual requires willing participation from the mortal, or at least participation that Molag Bal can interpret as willing. The specifics are deliberately vague, but the implication is clear. Valerica convinced Serana to undergo the ritual. A mother brought her daughter to a Daedric prince of domination and violation, and she knew what would happen. Why? Why would any parent do this to their child? The answer is power and prophecy. Harkon, Serana's father, was obsessed with a prophecy called the Tyranny of the Sun. He believed that if he could fulfill this prophecy, he could blot out the sun forever, allowing vampires to walk freely during the day, to hunt without restriction, to conquer without the weakness that daylight brings. The prophecy required several things: an elder scroll, Auriel's bow, and the blood of a daughter of Coldharbour. Harkon needed his family to become pure-blooded vampires. He needed his daughter to become a daughter of Coldharbour. He needed her blood for his grand design. So he made it happen. Try to imagine Serana's position. She was born into a noble family. She had a mother and father. She had a life, presumably, before all of this, though the game never tells us what that life was like. And then her father became obsessed. Her mother went along with it. And together, they decided that their daughter would be offered to Molag Bal. Did they explain what would happen? Did they lie? Did they use magic or coercion or simple parental authority? The game doesn't say. Serana doesn't say. But she went to Coldharbour, and she came back changed. The relationship between Serana and her parents is one of the most disturbing in gaming. Harkon, her father, views her primarily as an instrument of prophecy. Her blood is valuable, her feelings are not. When you meet him in the game, he offers you power and threatens to destroy you if you refuse. He is a monster, and the game makes no attempt to hide it. But Valerica is more complicated. Valerica clearly loves Serana. She hid Serana away in Dim Hollow Crypt specifically to protect her from Harkon's prophecy. She fled to the Soul Cairn to keep the Elder Scroll away from him. She sacrificed her freedom to keep her daughter safe. And yet, Valerica was also there when Serana became a daughter of Coldharbour. Valerica also underwent the ritual. Valerica also made the choice, for herself and for her daughter, to submit to Molag Bal. She loves her daughter, and she also delivered her daughter to a monster. These things are both true. Serana's silence about her past is not just trauma, it's also confusion. How do you process what happened to you when the people who did it also loved you? How do you hate your mother when your mother also saved you? How do you understand your own experience when the people responsible are not simple villains? Harkon is easy to hate. He's a power-hungry monster who views his daughter as a tool. But Valerica? Valerica is harder. Valerica made terrible choices, but she also suffered the same violation her daughter did. She is both perpetrator and victim, both the person who arranged Serana's trauma and the person who tried to protect her from its consequences. This is what makes Serana's story so devastating. It's not a simple tale of a bad thing happening. It's a complex web of family dysfunction, parental failure, love and abuse, intertwined until they become impossible to separate. Serana cannot hate her mother simply. because her mother also saved her. She cannot love her mother simply, because her mother also delivered her to Molag Bal. She is trapped between emotions that cannot be resolved. And so she says nothing. It's not something I really want to talk about. When you travel with Serana, you are traveling with a survivor. Not just a survivor of vampirism, not just a survivor of family conflict, a survivor of something the game cannot name, inflicted by people who should have protected her, leaving scars that thousands of years in a coffin could not heal. Every deflection, every silence, every moment where she changes the subject, all of it is the behavior of someone carrying weight they cannot put down. And most players never realize it. They like Serana because she's well-written, well-voiced, an interesting companion. They never understand the full depth of what she's been through. Now you do. Let me take you to Coldharbour, Molag Bal's realm of oblivion, the place where Serana went, the place where she was transformed. Understanding the location helps understand the horror. Coldharbour is not simply another dimension. It is a reflection of its master's nature. Every Daedric prince's realm embodies their essence. Sanguine's realm is eternal debauchery. Sheogorath's realm is madness made manifest. Molag Bal's realm is domination, violation, the complete erasure of free will. Imagine Nirn, the mortal world, but twisted into a nightmare. The same geography exists, but corrupted. Where Tamriel has green forests, Coldharbour has petrified trees dripping with ichor. Where Tamriel has cities full of life, Coldharbour has mockeries of cities full of tormented souls. The sky is perpetually dark. Not the darkness of night, but the darkness of despair, a void that presses down on everything beneath it. And everywhere there are chains. Chains hanging from the sky, chains binding the ground, chains wrapped around every structure, every soul, every inch of existence. Because that is what Molag Bal does. He binds, he traps, he dominates. This is where Serana went. The ritual to become a daughter of Coldharbour is never fully described in the games. This is deliberate. Some things are too dark for explicit depiction, but the lore gives us enough pieces to understand what happens. First, the mortal must be brought to Coldharbour. This requires a powerful summoning ritual, usually involving significant sacrifice. The mortal's soul is pulled into oblivion while their body remains on Nirn. Second, the mortal must be presented to Molag Bal himself, not to a servant, not to a lesser Daedra, to the prince directly. He must accept the offering. Third, the mortal must undergo something. The texts use euphemisms: ritual submission, dark union, the embrace of the prince. But beneath the euphemisms, the meaning is clear. Molag Bal is the prince of domination. His method of creating pure-blooded vampires involves the most complete domination possible. The violation is not incidental to the ritual. It is the ritual. The transformation that follows is Molag Bal's gift. After what happens, the mortal is no longer truly mortal. They have been touched by a Daedric prince in the most intimate and invasive way possible. Their soul is altered. Their body is changed. They become vampires, not through disease, but through direct corruption. They become daughters or sons of Coldharbour, a mockery of parenthood, as if Molag Bal has claimed them as his children through the act that created them. They become powerful, far more powerful than ordinary vampires, with abilities that reflect their closeness to the source of vampirism itself. And they become broken in ways that never fully heal. Serana underwent this ritual. We don't know exactly how old she was. We don't know if she understood what would happen. We don't know if she went willingly or was coerced. But we know she went to Coldharbour. We know she was presented to Molag Bal. We know she experienced whatever creates a daughter of Coldharbour, and we know she came back changed. When you meet Serana in Dim Hollow Crypt, she has been sealed away for thousands of years. But time in a coffin doesn't heal trauma. It just preserves it. Everything that happened to her is still fresh, still raw, still unspeakable.
Serana is not the only daughter of Coldharbour in the lore.
There have been others, many others, over the millennia. Molag Bal has been creating pure-blooded vampires since the dawn of recorded history. Each one underwent the same ritual. Each one experienced the same violation. Each one emerged with power and scars in equal measure. Some became rulers, powerful vampire lords commanding armies of the undead. Their trauma transformed into cruelty, passing on to others what was done to them. Some became hermits, withdrawing from all contact, unable to face a world that seemed hollow after what they experienced. Some went mad. The mind simply could not process what happened, and so it broke. And some, very few, found ways to continue, to exist with the memories, to build something resembling a life despite everything. Serana is trying to be one of those few. But the ritual leaves marks. Not physical marks. Vampires heal from physical damage. Psychological marks. Spiritual marks. Marks on the soul itself. Think about what the ritual does from a metaphysical perspective. The soul, in Elder Scrolls cosmology, is the essence of a person. It contains their identity, their free will, their connection to the larger universe. It is the most intimate and protected part of any being. The ritual to become a daughter of Coldharbour involves Molag Bal, the Prince of Domination, directly touching that soul, altering it, corrupting it, claiming it. This is not like being bitten by a vampire. That's a physical transformation with spiritual side effects. This is a spiritual transformation at the deepest level. Molag Bal reaches into the very core of who you are and changes it forever. Serana's soul bears the fingerprints of Molag Bal. This is not metaphor. In the game, you can take Serana to the Soul Cairn, a realm of trapped souls. Her mother Valerica is there, hiding from Harkin. To enter the Soul Cairn, you need to either become a vampire or have part of your soul trapped. If you choose the soul trap option, Serana apologizes. She knows what it means to have your soul violated. I don't like doing this, she says. Trust me, I know how it feels. She knows, because it was done to her. Let me talk about Valerica, Serana's mother, the woman who brought her daughter to Coldharbour, the woman who loved her daughter and also condemned her to unimaginable violation. Understanding Valerica helps understand the full tragedy of Serana's story. Valerica was not always a monster. Before the ritual, before Harkon's obsession, she was presumably a normal woman, perhaps a noblewoman, perhaps a mage. The lore doesn't specify her origins. What we know is that at some point she married Harkon. At some point she had a daughter. At some point her husband became obsessed with the tyranny of the sun. And at some point she made a choice. Harkon wanted power. He believed the prophecy would give him dominion over the sun itself. But fulfilling the prophecy required pure-blooded vampires. It required daughters of Coldharbour. Valerica could have refused. She could have taken Serana and fled. She could have fought back against her husband's obsession. Instead, she participated. She underwent the ritual herself. She became a daughter of Coldharbour. And then, this is the unbearable part. She brought her daughter to undergo it too. Why?
The game never gives us Valerica's full reasoning,
but we can piece together possibilities. Perhaps she believed resistance was impossible. Harkin was powerful, obsessed, dangerous. Perhaps she thought that if Serana had to become a vampire anyway, it was better for Valerica to be there than to abandon her daughter to the ritual alone. Perhaps she was already broken. She underwent the ritual first. Perhaps what Molag Bal did to her altered her judgment, her values, her ability to protect her child. Perhaps she truly believed it was for the best. Pure-blooded vampires are immensely powerful. Perhaps she convinced herself that the power was worth the price, that Serana would thank her eventually. Or perhaps she was simply weak. Weak in the way that people are weak when they go along with terrible things because opposing them seems too hard. None of these possibilities excuse what she did, but they complicate it. Valerica is not a cackling villain who delighted in her daughter's suffering. She is a person who made terrible choices under terrible circumstances, who loved her daughter and also failed her utterly, who spent thousands of years hiding in the soul cairn as a form of self-imposed penance. When you meet Valerica, she is desperate to protect Serana from Harkin. She has given up her freedom, her existence, her everything, to keep her daughter safe from the prophecy. But she cannot undo what she did. She cannot undeliver her daughter to Molag Bal. She cannot heal wounds she helped inflict. All she can do is hide an Elder Scroll in a realm of trapped souls and hope it's enough. It isn't. The relationship between Serana and Valerica is one of the most realistically painful in gaming. When they reunite in the soul cairn, there is no warm embrace, no tearful reconciliation, just awkwardness and unspoken history. Mother, Serana. So much contained in those two words. So much that cannot be said. Serana loves her mother. She also resents her mother. She wants her mother's approval. She also wants her mother to acknowledge what happened. And Valerica loves her daughter. She also cannot face what she did. She deflects, justifies, focuses on the immediate problem of Harkon rather than addressing the deeper wounds. They talk past each other. They fail to connect. They are family in the most broken sense, bound together by blood and trauma, unable to heal, unable to separate. After the main quest of Dawnguard, you can bring Valerica back from the soul cairn. Mother and daughter can be reunited in Castle Volkihar. But the game gives them almost no dialogue about their past, no confrontation, no healing, just coexistence. Because some wounds don't heal with a quest completion. Some conversations never happen. Some families remain broken forever. This is the family Serana comes from. A father who viewed her as a prophecy ingredient. A mother who loved her, but also betrayed her. A ritual that violated her at the deepest level. A legacy of power built on a foundation of horror. And she carries all of this with her, every moment as your companion. Every time she makes a joke. Every time she comments on the weather. Every time she fights beside you against dragons and vampires and whatever else Skyrim throws at you. All of this is underneath. Now that you know what happened to Serana, let me show you how it explains everything about her. Every quirk, every line of dialogue, every choice she makes throughout Dawnguard. When you understand her past, her present becomes heartbreakingly clear. Start with the moment you meet her. Dim hollow crypt. You solve an ancient puzzle, and a stone coffin rises from the floor. The lid opens. A woman stumbles out, disoriented, clutching an elder scroll. Who sent you here? Her first instinct is suspicion. Not gratitude, not relief. Suspicion. Who are you? Who sent you? What do you want? This is the response of someone who has learned that people who approach you usually want something, usually want to use you, usually have plans that involve your blood, your power, your body. She has been used before. She expects to be used again. But then something shifts. You're not there to use her. You're just an adventurer who stumbled into a vampire crypt. You have no idea who she is, what she's worth, what her blood can do. You're neutral. For someone like Serana, neutral is revolutionary. Neutral is safe. Neutral means you might actually see her as a person rather than a tool. She decides to trust you, tentatively, conditionally, but she decides. I need to get home. Will you help me? This is the beginning of your relationship. Not friendship yet. Not trust yet. Just a calculated risk from someone who has very few options. As you travel together, Serana reveals herself in small ways. She comments on the environment. She makes observations. She has opinions about the places you visit, the people you meet, the world she's waking up to after thousands of years. But notice what she doesn't do. She doesn't talk about herself. She doesn't share memories. She doesn't reminisce about her life before the coffin. She doesn't open up about her family, her past, her feelings. When you ask direct questions, she deflects. I don't really want to talk about that. It's complicated. Maybe some other time. This is classic trauma response. Survivors of violation often compartmentalize. They separate the traumatic experience from their daily existence, building walls around the memories so they don't contaminate everything else. Serana has built very thick walls. She can function. She can fight, explore, even joke. But she cannot go to the places in her mind where the memories live. Not casually. Not with someone she just met. The walls keep her functional. They also keep her isolated. Watch how Serana handles physical proximity. In the game, companions follow you closely. They stand near you, walk behind you, position themselves within arm's reach. But players have noted that Serana sometimes keeps distance. She positions herself further away than other companions. She seems uncomfortable in tight spaces. Is this just AI behavior? Random pathfinding? Or is it a survivor maintaining the space she needs to feel safe? Serana's relationship with her own body is complicated. As a vampire, her body is a source of power. She is stronger, faster, more resilient than any mortal. Her blood, the blood that Harkon wants, contains the essence of Molag Bal's corruption. But that power came at a price. Her body was the site of her violation. The transformation that made her powerful was also the transformation that broke something inside her. She inhabits a form that is simultaneously her greatest asset and her greatest reminder. There's a moment in Dawnguard that breaks my heart every time. If you're playing a male character, you can express romantic interest in Serana. You can suggest that there might be something between you. She turns you down. Not harshly, not cruelly, but firmly. Look, this isn't something I'm really ready for. Players have complained about this. They want to romance Serana. She's interesting, she's attractive, she's well written. Why can't we pursue a relationship? Now you know why. Serana's experience with Molag Bal was the most intimate violation imaginable. Her body was used. Her soul was corrupted. Her ability to trust, to open up, to be vulnerable, all of it was damaged in Coldharbour. When you express romantic interest, you're asking her to be intimate again, to trust someone with her body, her vulnerability, her deepest self. She can't. Not because she doesn't like you, not because you've done anything wrong, because intimacy itself is traumatic territory. Because the last time she was vulnerable with someone, really vulnerable, it destroyed her. This isn't something I'm really ready for. After what happened, she may never be ready. And that's not a flaw in her character. That's the realistic response of a survivor. But Serana does trust you, in other ways. She fights beside you. She shares her thoughts on the world. She lets you make decisions that affect her future. She even defers to your judgment about whether to cure her vampirism. These are acts of trust. They're just not romantic trust. Serana has learned to compartmentalize trust the way she compartmentalizes everything else. She can trust you with her life while still protecting her heart. She can be your companion while maintaining her walls. This is how survivors function. There's another telling detail in Serana's behavior. Throughout Dawnguard, she is remarkably passive about her own fate. Her father wants to use her blood to fulfill a prophecy. Her mother hid her away for thousands of years. Now you've awakened her, and everyone has plans for what happens next. And Serana just goes along with it. She doesn't assert her own desires. She doesn't demand agency. She follows you, follows the quest, follows whatever path seems least conflicted. Why? Because Serana learned long ago that her desires don't matter. Her father wanted power. Her mother wanted to protect her. Molag Bal wanted whatever Molag Bal wants. At every point in her existence, other people, other beings, have decided her fate. Her opinions were never consulted. Her wishes were never considered. Why would she expect this time to be different? This changes slightly as Dawnguard progresses. The more time Serana spends with you, the more she begins to assert herself. She expresses opinions. She makes choices. She even pushes back against you when she disagrees. This is healing. Not complete healing. Not the dramatic recovery that happens in movies. But the slow, incremental process of a survivor remembering that they have a voice. You, the player, are part of that process. By treating Serana as a person rather than a tool, by asking her opinion, by respecting her boundaries, you help her remember that she matters. This is why your relationship with Serana feels meaningful, even without romance. You're not just her companion, you're her rehabilitation. Let me talk about the vampirism cure. After defeating Harkin, you can suggest that Serana cure her vampirism. She can undergo a ritual to become mortal again, to purge the corruption of Molag Bal from her soul. Her response is complicated. She doesn't immediately agree. She doesn't immediately refuse. She thinks about it. I'll consider it. Why the hesitation? Because her vampirism is complicated. On one hand, it's the mark of her violation. The corruption in her soul is Molag Bal's fingerprint, a constant reminder of what was done to her. On the other hand, it's been part of her for thousands of years. It's the only existence she knows. Curing it would mean becoming someone else, someone she's never been. And there's another layer. The power of her vampirism came at a terrible price. If she cures herself, does that mean the price was for nothing? Does it erase what happened, or does it just waste it? Survivors often struggle with this question. They build identities around their trauma because their trauma is all they have. Letting go of it means letting go of who they've become. If you encourage her, Serana will eventually cure herself. She goes to a priest. She undergoes a ritual. She emerges mortal, purged of Molag Bal's corruption. The game doesn't show what this ritual involves, but think about what it means. For the first time in thousands of years, Serana's soul is clean. The fingerprints of Molag Bal are gone. The violation that defined her existence has been washed away. She is free. But freedom is complicated too. Cured Serana is mortal. She will age. She will die. The eternal existence that was forced on her is over. Is this what she wanted? The game doesn't say. Serana doesn't say. She just continues as your companion, making comments, fighting enemies, existing. But now she exists as someone who chose her own fate. For the first time in her entire existence, Serana made a decision about her own body that wasn't coerced, manipulated, or forced. That might be worth more than immortality. The relationship between you and Serana is one of the most nuanced in gaming. You cannot romance her. You cannot fix her. You cannot undo what was done. All you can do is be present, be trustworthy, be the person who doesn't want anything from her except her company. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes the most healing thing in the world is someone who sees you as a person. Not a tool, not a prophecy, not a source of power, just a person. Let me step back for a moment. We've spent almost an hour discussing trauma, violation, and the darkest lore in Elder Scrolls. Now I want to ask a different question. Why did Bethesda write this? Why create a character whose backstory involves something so horrific? Why hide it beneath the surface, never explicitly stating what happened, but leaving enough clues for players to piece together? What were they trying to do? The easy answer is, dark fantasy is dark. Elder Scrolls has always included mature themes. The Daedric princes are not sanitized villains. They represent genuinely disturbing concepts. Molag Bal has always been the prince of domination. His nature has always implied violation. Creating a character who suffered at his hands is consistent with the world Bethesda built. But I think there's something deeper happening with Serana. Serana is a study in how trauma shapes a person, not how it destroys them, how it shapes them. Too often, stories use trauma as a simple explanation for villainy. A character suffered something terrible, so now they're evil. The trauma is a justification, a backstory checkbox, a way to make the villain sympathetic without actually exploring what trauma does to people. Serana is different. Serana suffered something terrible, and she's still here, still functioning, still capable of kindness, humor, connection. She's not evil. She's not broken beyond repair. She's just damaged in ways that affect how she moves through the world. This is how trauma actually works for most survivors. The writers at Bethesda did something remarkable with Serana. They created a character whose trauma is never explicitly stated, never used for shock value, never exploited for dramatic effect. It simply exists, underneath everything. shaping her behavior in ways that feel authentic. If you don't know the lore, Serana just seems like a complex character with family issues. Her deflections seem like personality quirks. Her boundaries seem like character choices. But if you do know the lore, everything changes. Every line of dialogue gains new weight. Every behavior becomes a window into what she's carrying. This is sophisticated storytelling. And it serves a purpose beyond entertainment. Many players have connected with Serana without understanding why. They feel protective of her. They respect her boundaries without being told explicitly to do so. They sense that something happened to her, even if they can't articulate what. This is empathy being cultivated through fiction. Players learn to recognize the signs of trauma without being lectured about it. They learn to respect boundaries without being told that boundaries exist. They learn to see a person as more than their worst experiences. These are valuable lessons, and they're delivered through a video game companion who never explicitly teaches anything. Let me talk about Molag Bal in context. Throughout this video, I've described him as the Prince of Domination, the King of Rape, a being whose essence is violation. This is accurate to the lore, but it's worth noting how Bethesda handles him in the games. You can encounter Molag Bal directly. His Daedric quest in Skyrim involves helping him corrupt a priest of Boethia. He speaks to you, rewards you, exists as a presence in the game world. And yet, the games never show what he does to create vampires. They never depict the ritual. They never make the player witness or participate in the violation that defines his nature. This is a deliberate choice. There's a difference between acknowledging that darkness exists and exploiting darkness for entertainment. Bethesda acknowledges Molag Bal's nature. They include characters like Serana, whose backstories involve his violation. They don't pretend the darkness isn't there, but they also don't show it. They don't make it gratuitous. They don't turn violation into spectacle. The horror is implied, not depicted. The trauma is shown through its effects, not its occurrence. This is responsible, dark storytelling. Why does this matter? Because some players of Skyrim are survivors themselves. Statistically, given how many millions of people have played this game, many of them have experienced violation in their own lives. They carry their own trauma, their own unspeakable memories, their own walls and coping mechanisms. For these players, Serana might be the first fictional character who feels true to their experience. Not a victim defined by her victimhood, not a broken shell unable to function, not a character whose trauma exists solely to generate pity or shock. Just a person, a complicated, guarded, slowly healing person. Someone who survived something terrible and is still trying to figure out how to live. For survivors, seeing themselves reflected in fiction, even fantasy fiction, can be profoundly healing. Let me be clear about something. I've spent this video describing what happened to Serana in frank terms. I've used words like violation and rape because that's what the lore implies. But I've also tried to focus on Serana as a person, not just a victim, because that's how we should talk about survivors. What happened to them matters. It shapes who they are. It deserves acknowledgement and understanding. But it doesn't define them entirely. They are more than their worst experiences. They have agency, personality, futures that aren't determined solely by their pasts. Serana is a daughter of Coldharbour. She is also a vampire, a noblewoman, a traveler, a companion, a friend. All of these things are true simultaneously. When you next play Skyrim, I want you to remember this. Not constantly, not in a way that makes every interaction heavy and sad. Just remember. When Serana deflects a question, remember why. When she keeps her distance, remember why. When she turns down romance, remember why. And treat her accordingly. Not with pity. She doesn't need pity. She's survived things that would destroy most people. She's stronger than pity. Just with understanding. The quiet recognition that the person beside you carries weight you can't fully see. This is how we should treat everyone, actually. In fiction and in life, everyone we meet is carrying something. Histories we don't know. Traumas we can't see. Walls built for reasons we'll never fully understand. The practice of seeing Serana clearly, of recognizing her trauma without reducing her to it, is practice for seeing real people clearly too. Fiction can teach us this. Games can teach us this. A vampire companion in a fantasy world can teach us how to be more human to each other. That's the real magic of storytelling. Serana is still in Skyrim. If you finished Dawnguard and she's still your companion, she's somewhere right now. Standing in your house, perhaps. Wandering the halls of Fort Dawnguard, waiting for you to return. She doesn't know you've spent an hour learning about her past. She doesn't know that you now understand what Daughter of Coldharbour means. She doesn't know anything has changed. But you know. And maybe, next time you see her, you'll pause for a moment. You'll look at her differently. You'll feel the weight of what she carries. And maybe you'll just say something simple. Ready to go? And she'll fall into step beside you, the way she always does. And you'll continue together. That's what survivors do, after all. They continue. Not perfectly. Not without scars. Not as if nothing happened. But they continue. Serana has been continuing for thousands of years. Through the coffin, through Dim Hollow, through the prophecy and her father's death and the possibility of a cure. She continues. And there's something beautiful in that. Something hopeful. Something that says, even after the worst things imaginable, there is still a future. Still adventures to have. Still people to meet. Still a world to explore. The darkness doesn't win. Not if you don't let it. Sleep now. The night is dark, but dawn always comes. For Tamriel. For Serana. For you. Rest well. And when you wake, remember, everyone you meet is fighting battles you cannot see. Be kind.